Welcome in. Belly up, have a seat, and grab a drink as we talk some Wingman Fantasy Football. Welcome into another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League Podcast. I am your host, Michael Furley, and as always, I'd like to thank all of you, or any of you who may be watching or listening to today's show. This is episode 138, Week 15's 2-Point Conversation. It is my great pleasure to welcome into the bar Mr. Bernie, a.k.a. Team B.
I'm Cuban B. Yes, Cuban B.
How are you doing tonight, Bernie?
Honestly, or should I lie to you?
You can tell the truth here.
Oh, okay. Well, I live with 3 women, so let's.
Oh, no. Lie.
Okay.
Lie.
I'm doing good. I'm on a bye week.
There you go. All right. All right, guys. We have another jam-packed episode for you guys this week as we will go over some player news of the day. We'll also go through our studs and duds for Week 15. We'll also settle into a nice Week 15's 2-Point Conversation where we go through all of the action in Week 15 up to this point. But before we do any of that, let's make sure that everybody is in the room. Wingmen assemble! All right, let's get into some player news. All right, starting off with, I forgot to mention it this morning Sunday morning on the Sunday morning quickie here. Evan Ingram was also placed on the IR. This means that his 2024 season is over for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Harrison Butker was activated today. And he was on the field in the game against the Browns. Derek Carr was inactive for the Saints, making way for Jake Haener to get the start. Would he finish? We'll discuss later. And Roschon Johnson has been ruled out for the Monday night game up against the Minnesota Vikings. And we'll stop right there real quick. What do you have on Evan Ingram, who's out for the year? Harrison Butker is back. Derek Carr, of course, he was out. And Roschon Johnson is out as well.
Yeah, so with Evan Ingram, was it a torn labrum, I believe, in his shoulder?
I think that's correct. Something in his shoulder, yeah.
Yeah, so with the money that he's owed, the future of their coaching staff, I really it's a whole tough decision thing going on here for the Jaguars, and I don't know, he's pretty much like one of their go-tos, so I don't know who's going to be the replacement for that. Do you have any ideas on who would get that target share from Mac Jones there?
This year or next year?
Well, for the I guess if you're playing Jacksonville Jaguars in your fantasy playoffs, are you playing Jacksonville Jaguars in your fantasy playoffs?
Well, Brian Thomas Jr. looks like the guy they're going to go to often and with high quality targets for the rest of the way. If he hadn't already, he's going to get him the rest of the way now for sure.
Yeah, for sure. All right, and then Butker, he made one field goal or 3 PATs? I can't even figure that one out. So I'm not worried about Butker. He looked fine. Carr, it's just Haener went in, Rattler came in after and actually played pretty decent. So I think it'll be okay for that situation. And then Roschon, DeAndre Swift, I guess you got to monitor his status as well, right? Because
he's questionable right now, but there hasn't been any indication one way or the other whether he's expected to play or not.
So Homer and Evans, they could see their workload expanded, but I wouldn't trust either one of them either.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Now we have a couple guys here for the Browns. Cedric Tillman did return to practice in the limited capacity, but he still has not cleared the concussion protocol. So he was inactive on Sunday against the Chiefs, as was his teammate David Njoku, who had to go through pregame warmup to test out his injury. And unfortunately, he was not able to go. So he missed the game against the Chiefs as well. George Pickens was ruled out Friday. He was doubtful all week long. Technically ruled out either Friday or Saturday. He did not play in the game against the Eagles. And Kenneth Walker, Texas Ranger, was inactive for the second straight week, this time against the Packers on the Sunday night game. What do you have on these pair of Browns? George Pickens missing his second game and Kenneth Walker missing his second game.
Yeah, so fantasy impact for those guys is going to be Judy, obviously the wide receiver one there, and Elijah Moore moves into that wide receiver two consideration. So target volume boost for both of those in week 15, so that's good. As far as Pickens goes, increased target share for Fryermuth, which that's been what's been going on for the past couple weeks here. And then Charbonnet has a high end RB2 going forward, I would say. Clear lead role in the back there for that.
It's a little not off topic,
Yeah.
but a little ahead of schedule here. Do you think Kenneth Walker's gonna be back next week? I think he will be.
Uh, how's this game going? He might have to be. As of now, that's the game is 20 Green Bay, 3 Seattle.
Yeah.
I don't know what Charbonnet's stats are, but this it looks like at home they look like an anemic offense. So, I if he can go, he probably needs to. I don't know though. I haven't heard anything saying he's definitely going to be back, but we'll see.
A few players here who missed last week or got knocked out of the game early were active today and got back on the field, including Breece Hall was active for the Jets in the matchup against the Jaguars. Fortunately, he was barely used by the Jets today. Don't worry.
You have an opinion on this, Mike?
Yeah, well, I'm all right. We'll save that for another segment here. But Lad McConkey was also active for the Chargers this time, got back on the field. He seems to be one of these guys who plays really well for a half and then disappears for the other half. Once again, he came out strong in the first half and then kind of didn't do too much the rest of the game. I don't know if that's just coincidence, but it's happened more than once. Bucky Irving was back on the field. Rashad White got the start, but they definitely mixed in each other pretty evenly. But Bucky Irving had an awesome third to fourth quarter as they were starting to salt the game away, and he looked awesome. But Rashad White did as well. They split the carries, and they were just a 1-2 punch there, especially in the second half. And Josh Downs, too, was able to return to the field for the Colts in Week 15 against the Broncos. What do you have on these 4 players who are back on the field? Hall, Bunkaki, Irving, and Downs.
Yeah, so Hall, yeah, you're right. He did look okay. But he's obviously battling through that knee issue. Split backfield between Davis and Allen. 6 touches for Davis, 2 touches before the back injury for Allen. And then the fantasy outlook is just a RB2. I think the Rams in Week 16 versus the Rams, just due to the health and the workload concerns that he might have against the Rams. McConkey. With Disley is out. So McConkey still remains the top target, I guess, because I think he's just the most reliable, trustworthy receiver that Herbert has, and you could see Herbert struggle when McConkey's not in the game. So
yeah, McConkey looked good in that first half. Yeah. Everything he was catching was like 12 to 8, like good little chunk plays, 12 to 18 yards downfield. He always was open in like those seam areas, kind of like I don't know what his routes were, but running down 12 yards, kind of turning little hooks left or right, and kind of sitting down on that seam, the zone of the seam there, and he was catching them all the time. He looked pretty good there. And then eventually either the pressure got to, I think the pressure and lack of mobility got to Herbert, and the passes were not as nearly on target, and he couldn't see him as he was settling into those zones, and he was a little more flustered on those passes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If Herbert doesn't have those other receivers that he feels confident in, he's gonna struggle trying to get the ball to McConkey.
All right, we have Bucky Irving and Josh Downs who also came back.
Yeah, so Bucky Irving, with missing Winfield Jr., boosts the Chargers' passing game upside a little bit there. Wait, is that the wrong note for the wrong game here? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, Rashad White. Rashad White put the ball on the ground today again. So Bucky Irving needs to get that bump up. He is like teetering RB1, RB2, but he's got that injury risk. So I would say that Irving is a safe play for an RB2, but he does have RB1 upside. Josh Downs doesn't look like Josh Downs with the old man. He with Flacco. He's looking so much better with Flacco, but the rest of the team doesn't look good with Flacco. So Downs, you might want to just bring him down a notch, maybe a 1 tier, 2 tiers going forward. And if you're trying to get a receiver for the Colts on the field, Alec Pierce is still going to be that bigger boom bust, I think, with Richardson throwing the ball.
All right, moving along here, we had another player who's questionable for the Sunday game. Tony Pollard needed to test out his ankle. I actually saw some footage of him doing the pregame warm-ups with like the trainers kind of watching how he was doing. He was
Mhm.
doing like the slow, like little stutter steps, like almost like an invisible tire drill, like a stop and cut, but just kind of walking. He didn't look great, but then they gave him the thumbs up. I was like, oh, okay, all right, these guys are like the worst inspectors ever. But he did suit up, scored the first touchdown of the game, looked decent, but again, I could tell he wasn't strong just by the pregame warm up video, and he
Mhm.
did not finish the game as his ankle could not hold up for a full game of NFL action. Let's see. Aiden O'Connell still listed as questionable. I don't know how this guy's getting on the field. I know his injury isn't serious, but he hasn't practiced all week long. He's not that kind of veteran guy who can just step in. He needs as much work as he can get to be prepared for these
Mhm.
games. So I don't see him playing. Well, let's stop right there with those two guys, and we'll finish off with the last four. Tony Pollard got in, started out okay, but definitely could not finish the game with his ankle. And Aiden O'Connell, I don't think he's going to play, but he's still listed as questionable with no other information about him for Monday night.
Yeah, so the early TD was good for Pollard, helps some fantasy value. But the lost some snaps to Spears once the game script kind of turned negative for that. He dominated the carries though, despite the ankle issue, but didn't have any catches. So that's going to be a big thing if he's not going to able to get any catches and get some yards after the catch to help boost that fantasy number. So RB2 versus the Colts in Week 16, he's still going to be the lead back, but the QB issues is limiting that offense.
Do you think Aiden O'Connell is going to play, and you think it doesn't even matter
No,
in
I
terms of the
think
other players on his team?
I don't. Well, both QB options carry significant risk
Yeah,
in the struggling offense here. And then Crosby is also going to be out, so that's going to put a lot more stress on that defense. They're not going to be pinning people down, or they're going to be starting from bad field position. So I think Ritter will get the start. But if Ritter's bad and AOC is not that banged up, he might get in because they might have to bench Ritter. Because what's his name? Antonio Pierce, is that his name? Yeah,
yeah.
he's shown that he's okay benching his players mid-series, mid-game, putting him in and then putting him back. I mean, he did that with Gardner a couple times.
Right. A little more live action news here. Geno Smith has gone to the locker room. What looks like a potential ankle injury. He got rolled up on a little bit. Not sure the severity, but he did go back to the locker room, so they can't take care of it from the blue tent. So
Now that
I
should
know
be
he's on
that
your
should be good.
team. I don't know if he's someone you would consider playing in your consolation bracket there or not, but you've held him on the team all year long. Is that a concern you going forward?
It might be. Depends on the matchups that Richardson has. It'll be Richardson for the rest of this rest of these games for me probably, just because he has that rushing upside. But it looks like if Geno's out and they're down, whoever the Josh Jacobs manager is going to be happy because he's just going to keep getting the ball to control that clock.
Well, his last few carries have been negative carries. It's been very frustrating. Okay. All right. Moving along here. We've got some players who left the game early today, some with more serious issues than others. Jaleel McLaughlin was unable to finish today as he suffered a quad injury. Nick Chubb left the game early and he has been diagnosed with a broken foot. Patrick
Oof.
Mahomes limped off the field with about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter with what appears to be an ankle injury. Was not able to finish. The game was already in hand. Wasn't a blowout, but there wasn't enough time for anything else to change. So I don't know if that was a kind of precautionary. They were working on his ankle, taping him up. So my thought is if there was more time left in the game, he would have been able to get back in just by the amount of time needed to get him kind of retaped up. By the
Mhm.
time he was retaped up, the game on the clock was zeros, or the game clock was zeros. And Alvin Kamara had a nice day today, but it ended up not being able to finish as he left the game with a groin injury. What do you have on these players here? A couple more your guys: McLaughlin, Chubb, Mahomes, and Kamara all left the game early today.
Yeah, so with McLaughlin's status, we'll monitor his status. Williams likely will be the lead back if McLaughlin misses times. Um, Estime's in there, but I wouldn't pick up Estime or play Estime. Chubb, I just feel bad for the guy, but it might be
Yeah,
the best. It might be the best thing. He gets off the field. Maybe he should have been off the field earlier, just because the season's a wash, and he is coming off of an injury mid-season, so he just needs to rest the rest of the year and be 100% for next year. And hopefully they can figure their quarterback situation out over there. But Jerome Ford, does Jerome Ford look good? I don't know. I don't think so. He scored a 62-yard touchdown after Chubb exited the game, so maybe there's something there. Mahomes, I saw this and it didn't look good. Like it looked like he bent the like completely not where you're supposed to bend.
oh really?
Yeah. So I think something might have. if it's not torn or if it's not any ligaments damaged or anything, then he'll be fine. But I'm pretty sure there's something's got to be messed up. Even if there's not, though, with the lead that they have, Wentz should be okay. I think once Wentz gets first team snaps and he gets the timing down with these receivers, he'll be okay. He's a veteran. And then I trust the coach to come up with a game plan for his success. And with Pacheco back, that kind of helps that situation as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Kamara, I think Kamara should just say I'm hurt and sit for the rest of the season because Kendra Miller will be sufficient and they're not going anywhere.
Right. Right. All
But
right,
that's
guys.
not going to happen. So
Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys. It is now time to check in on our studs and duds.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Wingman Fantasy Football Studs and Duds.
All right, guys. We had a lot of duds today, and we had a little bit of each here. But why don't you get us started on our studs for Week 15?
all right. First off, not a quarterback. Look at this. Scary Terry McLaurin coming alive late season, 22.8 points, 73 receiving yards, 7 receptions, and 2 receiving touchdowns. Good job. Another receiver, Devonta Smith. I wonder if AJ Brown's mad. 22.5 fantasy points, 109 receiving yards, 11 receptions, and 1 receiving touchdowns. Let's stick with the trend here. CeeDee Lamb, 22.1 points. Despite Cooper Rush throwing to him, 116 receiving yards, 9 receptions, and 1 receiving touchdowns. Oh, AJ's not mad because he's on the list. AJ Brown, 21 points, 110 receiving yards, 8 receptions, and 1 receiving touchdown. He's a happy, happy man now.
All right, continuing along with our receivers topping this list here, we have Malik, won't you be my neighbors?
Won't you be my neighbor?
Had 19.2 points with 82 receiving yards on 10 catches and 1 receiving touchdown. Jalen Coker, who is that? He plays for the Panthers. He had 19 points today, 110 yards on 4 receptions and a long bomb touchdown. Chase McLaughlin, kicker for the Tampa Bay Bucks, had 18 points today on 4 field goals and would that be 4 PATs? Let's see. Jerome Ford, you mentioned him earlier. He had a decent game with that long touchdown. 17.4 points on 104 total yards on 2 receptions and 1. I have his rushing touchdown. I might be mistaken. 1 touchdown.
There you go. All right. T. Higgins getting involved here. 17.3 fantasy points, 88 receiving yards, 5 receptions, and 1 receiving touchdowns. And Brandon Aubrey, I saw him try a 70-yard kick today. Didn't get it off pretty good, but they trust him to try it. 16 fantasy points, 3 field goals, 3 point afters, and 1 50-plus yard field goal. Cam Little. I don't know who that is. I don't know who he plays for. It looks like he's a kicker, though. He had 4 field goals and 1 PAT for 15 fantasy points. And Tyler Bass, I know who that is. 15 points, 2 field goals, and 6 point afters with 1 50-plus yard field goal.
So that is it for our studs today, guys. And half of these guys were kickers. It was 70% receivers, one or 2 running backs. Was it just 1 running back?
Yeah.
Just Jerome Ford?
Just Jerome Ford.
Wow. And then we had 3 kickers make the list, if not 4, 3 it looks like. So now we have to go to our duds, and unfortunately this list is long. So just why don't you nestle in, get under the covers, and listen to a nice, scary story about the duds for Week 15. Why don't you start us off with our duds for Week 15?
It's like a boomer bust week. Is that the trend for this week? Oh, do I have to say his name? Tua, 11.84 points in the Dolphin loss. Russell Wilson, 10.42 points in a loss. Kyler Murray, 10.06 points. I know you're feeling bad on that one, Michael. And Matthew Stafford, 8.2 fantasy points.
Chuba Hubbard, I think he's starting to wear down. He wasn't expected to have this much workload for this period of time. So he had 6.9 points today. DeAndre Hopkins only had 6.1 points. Brock Purdy on Thursday night had 5.9 points from the quarterback position. But don't worry, there's still other quarterbacks who had worse days, including Jameis Winston at 5.84 points.
Wow. All right. Next up, David Montgomery, 5.5 points. Isaiah Pacheco, 5.2 points. Isaiah Pacheco got fined a ton of money, like $40,000 or something for
Really?
a hit with his helmet. Oh my God. Not from last week.
Right, right.
Brandon Cooks, 4.9 points. Jaleel McLaughlin, 4.9 points. Man, there's a trend going here with running backs.
All right, we have some big names on this section of the duds, starting out with Travis Kelce at 4.7 points, Josh Downs at 4.7, Tyreek Hill, oh no, 4.6, and Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't think he's very good. He only had 4.2 points.
I don't think that team's very good at the moment. All right, next up, Tank Bigsby. This tank is out of gas or something. 4.2 points. Jawan Jennings, he had dropped the game-winning 2-point conversion. 4.1 points for Jawan Jennings. Nick Chubb, he got hurt. 4.1 points. Tyrone Tracy, he did not get the phone call. 4.1 points. Tough.
We're going to talk about this guy later. I hate him. him.
Hate is such a you strongly dislike him.
Yeah, I know. But I can't say a good thing about this guy. Will Levis at 3.56 points. Debo Samuel dropped a touchdown pass that would have saved his day. He only had 3.4 points. Cade Otton does not do anything when there's a Mike Evans, Mike Evans, like it's a creature or a beast, but he is a beast, as Cade Otton only at 3.4 points. Javonte Williams, another Denver running back. These guys cannot do anything in the running game, had only 3.3 points.
All right, next up. Oh, look, it's a New York Giant quarterback, one of the many that they have been playing. I think they're down to like their 4th or 5th string. Tommy DeVito, 2.72 points. Jake Hayner, 2.66 points. This is a surprise. Najee Harris, 2.6 points. And Gus Edwards, 2.3 points.
We're going to finish off here with Jaylen Warren at 2.0 points. Braylon Allen got the start today. We know Breece Hall was active, but it was going to be Braylon Allen's show mixed in with Isaiah Davis, but he only got 0.5 points as he left the game early with a back injury. And we didn't forget about you, Mr. Cooper Kupp, on Thursday night, starting off the week with a 0. All right, guys, it is now time to take a look at our Mecha Studs.
Mega Studs.
All right, well, our stud list was a little shorter than normal because our Mecha Stud list was longer than it's ever been. Last week was the longest I could remember how long it might have been in terms of the long length of the list here. But this time it's even double that. We're going to start off with Josh Allen for the second straight week as the highest scoring fantasy player at 41.28 points. He got there with 362 passing yards, 68 rushing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 2 rushing touchdowns. He only had 4 touchdowns this week instead of 6 from last week, slowing down. But on the other side of the ball in the same game, Jared Goff had 41.06 points. These guys were going tit for tat in terms of fantasy points. Goff had 494 passing yards, 13 rushing yards, and he had 5 passing touchdowns. Oh, this guy had a day, mostly a great second half, as Devontae Adams at 38.3 points. Told you these old guys like playing in Florida, man. They had 198 receiving yards, 9 receptions, 2 touchdowns, and a 2-point conversion. Lamar Jackson got the day started off. He liked to party. He had 34.8 points with 290 passing yards, 65 rushing yards, and he had 5 passing touchdowns. And Mike Evans was a man. Mike Evans had 32.4 points on 159 receiving yards on 9 catches, and he scored 2 touchdowns.
All right, next up on this list, if the quarterback is up there, one receiver at least has got to be on there. The sun god himself, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 32.3 points, 193 receiving yards, 14 receptions, and 1 touchdown. Next up, Jalen Hurts. Look at you stealing points and touchdowns and yards from everybody. 30.1 points, 290 passing yards, 45 rushing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown. And old man Rodgers coming out of the Hiawatha hurt. 30.06 fantasy points, 289 passing yards, 45 rushing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 1 2-point conversion. And Baker Mayfield. Oh, I love this guy. I love this guy. This is the comeback story of the year, if not the century or decade. 30.02 fantasy points, 288 passing yards, 25 rushing yards, and 4 passing touchdowns. And he was on somebody's bench today. And James Conner. How do you like to say James Conner? He's a Sweet Feet. James Sweet Feet Conner.
Yep.
28.3 points, 138 total yards, 5 receptions, and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, we mentioned before about the get rid of the sliding for quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield ran several times today, and he didn't look to slide once.
Nope.
He's fun to watch around. He's looking to get as many yards, and he's diving into people at the end of the play.
Oh, yeah. He's hyping that whole team up.
All right, you asked the question earlier when it comes to Jacksonville Jaguar receivers. Well, we have a Mecha Stud for the receiving corps for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Brian Thomas Jr., 27.5 points, 105 receiving yards, 10 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs had 25.9 points on 114 total yards, 5 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. And James Cook can score when Josh Allen scores. James Cook, welcome to the party. 25.8 points on 133 total yards. He only had 1 catch, but he did score 2 touchdowns. Chase Brown is just awesome when it comes to stats. I think he's quietly the new Kyron Williams. He has 24.8 points at 113 total yards, 3 receptions, and he got in the end zone twice. And Tajay Spears had a fine day, mostly in the receiving game when they were in comeback mode in the second half. He had 24.2 points on 92 total yards, 6 receptions, and he scored 2 touchdowns. All right, guys. So now it is time to get into this week's 2-point conversation.
Is Jack Del Rio going to go for 2 here,
He's
Rick?
going for 2.
The Raiders will go for 2 and the probable victory with 47 seconds left.
If you don't make this, you lose. If you make it, you're in a position to win.
Wingman Fantasy Football's 2-point conversation.
And it's good! Oh my goodness!
All right. So the theme for this week's 2-point conversation is this. Let's see. Backup quarterbacks got their shot and then ended up being replaced due to their poor play. The passing games were hot and the running games were not. And there were huge scores for many of our top fantasy football player options this week. All right, Bernie. What do you think about the theme there with these the receivers and quarterbacks were all over the place and running backs were hard to find on our stud list this week?
Yeah, this was a tough week if you were playing. I wasn't playing. I was on a bye week. But if you were playing, it was a boomer bust looking kind of week, man. And I think that dud list was so long because a lot of those Mecha Studs we just rattled off were just getting everything. It is all or nothing, man. All or nothing.
All right. Why don't you start us off? What's the first game we're going to get into in this 2-point conversation?
All right, we're going to start with the Thursday night game and we'll go through fairly quickly, but the Rams defeated the 49ers 12-6, winning without touchdowns for the first time since 2016. So this victory marks the Rams' 7th win in 9 games, improving to 8-6 after a 1-4 start. That's big news right there for the Rams. And the 49ers, they dropped to 5-8, severely damaging playoff hopes for the defending NFC champions.
I think they're done because they don't have tiebreakers against the Rams. They don't have tiebreakers against anybody that they're going up against. So they're gonna have to win out and have everyone lose out to even have a chance. They're 2 games back with 4 to go, and they don't have tiebreakers.
yeah. This was a rough game to watch. It wasn't a pretty game. So Purdy looked bad, only 142 yards and that 1 interception. And Stafford didn't look much better with 160 yards. So the teams combined for 11 punts, only 9 first down, and 197 yards in the first half. So this was not a fun game to watch. So
yeah, it was a rainy day, although it didn't look sloppy out there too bad. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously I wasn't out there, but no, there were a lot of duds in that game. A lot of duds. It made the Kyron Williams 12-point game look like a good day, and Puka Nacua had 14 plus points in fantasy points. That made him look like a superstar stud, but that was just relatively compared to the other guys on the field. And now I have to ask you a question here.
Yeah.
With Brock Purdy struggling so bad in that snow game a couple weeks back in Buffalo and playing awful in this rain game in against LA here, is he is he like a pretty boy quarterback and only play well in perfect conditions? What's going on here?
I don't know if it's that more or less than maybe he just doesn't have the NFL experience within those types of conditions. It's almost like Tua. I don't think Tua is soft, but not winning in cold weather games. I just think, as someone who just didn't play in a ton of cold weather games, that he just, now he's in the NFL. How long has he been in the NFL now? 4
Purdy,
years?
this is his third year, maybe fourth.
Yeah.
At the most, is his fourth. Yeah.
So it's not like he's a seasoned veteran with these games, and he doesn't lose all the cold games. I think I don't know that stat, but no, I don't think this is a thing for Brock Purdy. I think it's a thing for the Niners at the moment. I think Brock Purdy is going to be okay.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
This game was a dud. Let's get to our next game here.
Yeah, let's get to the next game. The Chiefs defeated the Browns 21-7, improving to 13-1. So rare, comfortable win for the Chiefs, who have had 10 victories by 7 points or less. And then the Browns dropped to 3-11 amid a turnover plague performance by you-know-who.
Yeah, well, you said 21-7, right? That was the final?
Correct.
And I felt like it was 14-zip for like almost the entire game, or pretty much. I felt like the Chiefs scored in their first couple drives. Juju Smith-Schuster caught a touchdown. Xavier Worthy got in the end zone. I'm not sure the order. Oh, and was it Noah Gray? I think Noah Gray caught the second one.
Smith-Schuster, Gray, and Worthy. Yep.
Right. So those guys, the first two came relatively early, but somewhere in the middle of the second quarter at the latest. And the Browns weren't doing anything. Jerry Jeudy, though, once again got over 100 yards receiving. I didn't watch this one too much. It didn't make my cut here. Was the weather bad there? That was the only one that I had on the top of my list of weather concerns, is potentially windy and or rainy.
No, it wasn't too bad. I don't think it was affecting the game as much as what you needed. So the couple of things for Jeudy, though, like you said, he broke that century mark, but he passed 1,000 yards for the season.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I think that's a win for the Browns for next season, man. They got a real number one receiver there.
Did Winston look awful? He wasn't doing anything stat wise except for the 100 yards to Jeudy there, but he had to. Did he have 2 or 3 interceptions?
He had 3. Where is it here? I don't have it here. I think he had 3 interceptions. 4 interceptions. I'm sorry.
Oh, 4. Oh, wow. Okay.
But no. There was 3 for Winston and then 1 for
DTR. Yeah.
But one of them that Winston had. I mean, they weren't all his fault. Obviously, he could not throw it in certain situations, but some of them his receivers didn't even try to battle for it. I think for at least one of them, I saw that the receiver just kind of let the defender get it, and he could have had a little bit of playing a defender at that moment. But yeah, it was bad. None of them were pick sixes though. So hey, his prayer worked.
Was Winston banged up, or he get benched due to performance?
No, I think it was performance. I think they just needed a spark, a change to get this young kid in their DTR and see if something happened.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then obviously, like we talked about, Nick Chubb broke his foot.
Yeah, Chubb went out, and Mahomes was banged up there. And you said it looked a little more gruesome than it could have been. So we'll see how that goes going forward.
Exactly. Okay, now this one, I know you got some insight on this one here. Bengals defeated the Titans 37-27, improving to 6-8, and the Bengals secured their 400th franchise regular season win. And then Titans, they fell to 3-11, dropping to 1-6 at home.
So I don't know the exact order of scores, but I do know that the Titans scored in their first 2 drives. So I don't know if they were up 14-zip or if it was 14-7. I feel like maybe both teams scored on their first 2 drives, but Tennessee scored on the first 2 drives for the first time all season, if I'm not mistaken. I thought I saw that stat watching the game there. So they were moving the ball, but it was they got good field position, and they were doing it on the run game. They weren't really passing the ball. Pollard started out pretty hot, scored that touchdown. Then Tajay Spears had a couple nice plays, get him to the 1 yard line, and they kept kind of working it finally till he got in the end zone. They had to do a replay to say that he didn't get in. They thought he got in earlier, Tajay Spears, and then eventually I think he got in on that same drive. Oh yeah, did you see how he scored his first touchdown?
Spears?
Yeah, they're at the 1 yard line, and he jumped up over the pile, but he didn't do a Superman jump. He did a standing Statue of Liberty jump.
Yeah, and then he put that ball out there.
He stood on top of the offensive lineman and just went with the ball out in front, and they just kind of made like a human staircase as he kind of walked down the stairs down. It was weird. He was like in the air forever. He was just standing on top of people and then walked into the end zone floor.
He's not the biggest back too. He's one of the smaller, quick feet back there.
So that was kind of fun how long he was like, he's not down yet. Is he floating? Is he flying? He was just on top of people for a long time and just stuck the ball out over the line there. And then Cincinnati started to score a little bit. because they took the lead, I think, once, and then they said, all right, Levis, let's see what you can do. And he is the worst. He threw like 2 or 3 interceptions on like three or out of 3 or 4 pass attempts. I think and I saw a stat. He was like 11 for 13 or like 11 for 14, but he had 3 interceptions. He literally completed every pass to somebody up to that point. And it was just awful. And there were so many times like, get him. I was yelling, get him out. And they let him do again. He make another mistake. I'm like, get him out. I'm like, at halftime, there's no way he's coming out of halftime starting this, because it's like hard to make a change like in the fly like that.
Yeah.
He started that freaking second half, man. They let him go 2 or 3 more drives, threw like a pick 6, fumbled another one, and they finally brought Rudolph in. And then you could see all the Titans got way more pumped just to play. They were like, they weren't doing anything better. They were getting 3-yard runs, but they're like, yeah, 3-yard run. Let's go, Mason Rudolph. You're our leader. And like, they must hate that guy. It's got to hurt so bad to have a person losing games for you over. They've been they were in this game. They've been in a lot more games than their record indicates. And he like literally just gives up 10 points, just gives them away.
I was worried at the beginning of this game. The Titans looked good. As far as like coming out of the gate, like looking good. Well, Levis was 8 of 12 with 3 picks, and 1 was a pick 6.
There you go. Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, he was miss. There was a couple times where he had no pressure. Someone just did a regular like that kind of pass. We mentioned McConkey. So he just went back and we just had to hit the guy in the chest and like sailed it over his head. Like there was no reason to miss the throw. He just like fired it over the guy's head. Like, if you can't hit that throw, man, either you're seeing ghosts or you can't do it. It's like, you might be able to lift weights. You might be able to throw a ball through a hoop, but when it comes to football on the field, he can't do it. He's bad. I was thinking all day long, I'd be like a cop show. They should have him come to the office. So I was thinking of like those cop shows, like where they say, like, they bring him to the office and they say, put down your badge, son. You're off the streets. I was like, they should go to Levis, like, give me your helmet. You're done. You're done. They shouldn't give him the helmet in practice. He should literally never play again. They trade him to somebody else. That is a sabotage.
Yeah.
I strongly dislike Will Levis.
No, you could hate the way
I hate his play.
Hate the way Will Levis plays football. But your scenario is absolutely right. It's like the walks into the coach and he's like, I'm gonna need your helmet and your wristband. You're done.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
For your own safety and the safety of everyone else on the street here.
Yeah. All right. This game's done.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. Next game up. Commanders defeated the Saints 20-19. Very close game, improving to 9-5. Saints dropped to 5-9. Now 0-4 without Derek Carr. So the game decided on a failed 2-point conversion attempt as time expired, and that was Juwan that dropped that. So Rattler looked good at that last drive to get them in the end zone. And I was so surprised that they took that 2-point conversion at the end of the game. Yeah.
So Hainer started. I forget, his counting stats were awful. He only had like 3 or 4 completions for like 30 yards.
4 for 10 for 49 yards. And
yeah, it was all. And he played 3 quarters, if not more than 3 quarters, to get that.
Yeah.
Alvin Kamara was doing pretty good. I think he was running the ball pretty well. He caught an awesome touchdown pass over the shoulder, a long pass with a outstretched over the shoulder catch, and his feet. It didn't like he got him in, but like his first foot was still in the ground as the ball just touched his hand, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it was in his palm, and I think what they saw was the ball in his palm as that was his left foot. As his left foot was still on the ground, the ball was in his
one hand. Yeah,
it was in his,
and it never moved.
It was
never
his right
like you'd be like, there's no way he could control on the first moment it touched his hand, but it never moved from the first moment it touched his hand.
Yep.
Right.
And I think that's why they called it. Sorry. Go ahead.
That's right. And that pass was not from a quarterback. That was from Cedric Wilson, the receiver, threw that long touchdown.
Yep.
So, and then eventually they benched like you said, they benched Hainer for Rattler. I don't know when he came in. Like it was later than I thought. I want to say 10 minutes or less in the game. And Rattler came down and had 2 scoring drives back to back. He looked really good. It helped a lot that I'm not sure exactly what the final stat was because they took a field goal that didn't count because of the buzzer on the end of a quarter. But the Washington kicker missed all of his kicks pretty much in that fourth quarter to give a chance for mathematically for the Saints to come back. And they did. They came back, tied it up. Did they score at the buzzer that touchdown?
Yes. Yes, because that was it. The 2-point conversion was the last play of the game.
Right. So they scored they were down 7. They scored the touchdown with Rattler on a tight end running across the front line of the end zone. It was Moreau.
Yep.
And then they ran the same exact play, but they switched tight ends, it looked like to me.
Yep.
and
it
put
was a
Jennings
rub
there.
route, and Moreau ran that rub route a lot better than Jennings did.
I mean, it's not a lot of space, but Moreau had space in front of him. And the other one, he was just kind of throwing in a pile and hope that his hands would get out there.
Exactly.
I don't think they're trying to win. They're not trying to play games. They're like, let's get out of here. So I'm not against it, but it would have been nice for the fans to see them win the game. Jaden Daniels, he was doing whatever he wanted. He was running the ball all over the place. He was passing the ball. McLaurin had a nice day, but McLaurin, I would say dropped. They were hard catches. They were long line drive passes. But McLaurin didn't complete 3 or 4 long bombs that would have also been touchdowns. He could have had even a doubly big day today, as they just kept throwing 35, 45-yard strikes to McLaurin. But with that distance, there's got to be pretty perfect to catch him. And I think if Daniels would have put some little more air on it, he was throwing line drive bombs instead of kind of over the top bombs.
Yeah, for sure.
It made it a little difficult for the receiver to catch.
Yeah. And just a correction, I said Jennings. It's Johnson, John Johnson.
Okay, that's what okay.
And then Rattler, he led all 4 of their scoring drives. So
okay,
that's a good sign going forward, as long as they can control his Will Levis imitations, where he's trying too hard. Just do what you do. And if the coaching staff has a good game plan for him, they're not going to be god awful. So,
yeah, I don't think New Orleans has a tough schedule the rest of the way, just for experience. They're not going to be overwhelmed, I don't think, if they want to try and get this guy some experience.
Exactly. See what you got, and then move on next year if you need to. All right.
Next game. Even though it was close and didn't look good at the end for Washington, just by the way that they were missing kicks. A huge win though for Washington. I think that's their 9th win of the season. It's a very competitive NFC. There's going to be a couple teams with winning records be left out, so that's a huge win for them. You can't afford to lose to these lower teams, as you're going to have some tougher matchups later in the season. So a big win for Washington for their playoff potential to make the playoffs.
Yep, and Ertz did get a concussion in this game as well.
So. Oh yeah, yes.
Yep. All right, moving on. Next game, the Ravens dominated the Giants. See, this is what Washington should have done with New Orleans, but we'll give them a pass. This game they won. Ravens dominated the Giants 35-14, improving to 9-5. Giants dropped to 2-12, tying the franchise record with ninth straight loss. And then the Giants remain winless at home this season, 0-8, and they're currently sitting, I believe, with the first overall pick.
So in terms of the Ravens offense, they were ready for a party today. They were ready to have a good old time. They were having fun. They were running around, throwing long passes. Guys are catching everything. Derrick Henry got off to a slow start. I think his only 1 or 2 decent runs were called back on penalties. And then they're like, well, let's just throw the ball, see if they can stop it. And they couldn't. So they didn't have to run the ball at all. Even when they were up by a lot, where you think in most games they'd let Derrick Henry salt the game away, but they got up so fast that there's like, let's put Justice Hill in there and just why waste the energy for Derrick Henry here when we don't need to. So Derrick Henry did not get a lot of work. He got tackled a few times, and his few okay plays ended up getting called back. So they didn't need him today, and Lamar Jackson had a fun day. I'm a little disappointed because I thought the defense was going to be part of this party. I picked him up I thought it was going to be a stud defense against the Giants, and they were just like, no, we're good, just give him yards and letting him score every 4th drive and not really trying to stop him.
Yeah, because they got out to such a dominating lead there. Let me just real fast here, because you're talking about Jackson. Listen, this is his performance for today. 21 of 25, 290 yards, 5 touchdowns. QB rating 154.6, almost perfect. He had an early fumble on the 12-yard line, but that's okay. He overcame that. 34 total touchdown passes this season, and then 6th career 5-touchdown game. Wow. 2nd this season, too.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't need to run it. He can, and he should have last game, like his mama said, but he can throw it. But this is what you're supposed to do against the Giants, right?
Yeah. It was Rashad Bateman who caught the long touchdowns. The first one, he just stopped. He went for a long bomb. It was underthrown. He came back, and the Giants were like, where is he? And he just kind of slow danced, walked around 3 defenders that were like not really moving in the right direction. Like they were behind him because he caught the ball at like the 8-yard line or so. He had to come back to the short thrown bomb. Yeah. And then he just kind of used them as cones and just kind of skipped through the 3 of them and got into the end zone.
Exactly. He looked like the foosball going in between the foosball players that nobody was like making the thing. They were just standing there. It looked pretty bad for him. So
we have a DeVito. He left the game. I think he got banged up, but he wasn't playing well. And then once they brought in, it was a concussion. Okay.
Yeah.
And once they brought in Tim Boyle, he knew the assignment in terms of what to do. He just kept peppering the ball to Malik Neighbors. Once he came in, he's like, this guy's always open. I'm just going to throw to him. Once he came, I mean, Neighbors had a few catches, but once Boyle came in, it was just Neighbors. Very upsetting to me personally, but at the same time, good playing for him. Go to your best receiver, and he did it over and over again.
Yeah, for sure. Did we do Neighbors on the studs and duds list?
Yes.
What did he have? 100 and something yards? I should have that.
He had 19 points, so he had 82 receiving yards on 10 catches, and he caught the touchdown.
Nice. Boyle only threw 123 yards, so 80 something of them went to.
Yeah, I would say about 58 of those came from Boyle. So 58 of those 82 were, at least.
Wow. All right. Anything else you got on this one?
No. There's a blowout. We all knew it was going to be. I thought the defense might get a few more sacks or a fumble recovery for a touchdown or something. Didn't happen.
Didn't happen. So Atlanta is playing the Giants next week. So if you got some Atlanta assets and you make it to the next round of the playoffs, you might want to play them. All right. Moving on here. Cowboys defeated the Panthers 30-14. Cowboys improved to 10-4. Did I read that right? Wow.
No.
They're not 10-4?
No, the Cowboys only have like 5 wins at the most.
Okay, I must have wrote that completely wrong here. Let me hold on a second. I got it up on the screen.
Okay.
Here.
Well, before we get to the record there, I'll just say the Cowboys came out firing. They got up to a quick lead. I don't know if it was 10 or 14 zip, but they scored right away. It took Carolina a little bit to get going. They finally had they had a long touchdown towards the end of the half to just get it to keep it respectable, but Dallas dominated this game all the way through.
Yeah, so they were 6-8. That's their record now. And the Panthers fall to 3-11. So Dallas outgained Carolina 410 yards to 235 yards. And the Panthers were favored for the first time in nearly 2 years.
Rico Dowdle for the third straight game broke the 100-yard mark in terms of rushing. CeeDee Lamb was getting targeted like crazy, and he got in the end zone this time. He has his best games when he sees amazing Spidey on the other side of the lineup there. But
oh boy.
But they just dominated this game. I think the Panthers like, we're favored, but we don't know how to play like this, and they didn't get off to the same starts they've been getting in the other games. I think Chuba Hubbard, Dallas defense is up and down. They have potential, but they don't always perform. This is one of the days where they performed their potential, and I think Hubbard's getting a little worn down now that he had 30 carries last week in that game last week, and I think this is a little more workload than he's expected to take on.
Yeah, this was definitely the defensive game that the Dallas was expected all season. So 4 forced turnovers from Young, 6 sacks, and 2 Parsons sacks by himself here. And the Panthers were held to just 1 yard in the third quarter. It was pretty bad. Young had 2 interceptions and 2 fumbles. So turnovers doesn't help in that game. So good job, Dallas. You wish you were 10-4 like I mistyped.
Yeah, right.
But you're not. All right. Moving on here. So Jets defeated the Jaguars 32-25, ending a 4-game losing streak. Jets improved to 4-10, and the Jaguars fall to 3-11. Jets topped 30 points for the first time this season. 2 weeks in a row, they're getting some firsts on the offense.
I told you that it's that Florida weather for the old guys. Yeah. So it was a weird game. Jacksonville was actually they were having a little fun in the first half. They were outplaying them. They just never really pulled all the way away. We saw the big day for Devontae Adams. He had 198 yards of receiving. That all came in the second half. He had zero catches and 0 yards, obviously, in the first half. Then they started going to him. He had a lot of nice strikes down the field. I believe Jacksonville scored a touchdown later in the fourth quarter I think essentially it was pretty much tied back and forth, or like 3 points to 10 points. And then Jacksonville scored, and then the Jets scored a long touchdown when they needed it. It was like 3rd and long, and they threw a long touchdown pass to Devontae Adams, and they went for 2, and then he caught the 2-point conversion. He was just all over the place the second half. It was old school. He was the hyper target. A lot of Rodgers looked good. He was running a lot. He had 45 rushing yards, we mentioned earlier.
Yep.
And whenever he threw to somebody else, Garrett Wilson was okay. He just wasn't targeted as much. But Lazard dropped Rodgers threw several awesome passes to Lazard, who just dropped him. And he's like, forget this. We're just going to Adams the rest of the day. They did not use their running backs today. Breece Hall, obviously there was a concern about his being injured or not. But early in the game, he got a couple carries in traffic, and he was doing some big juke moves and shimmy shakes. And I was nervous. I'm like, his knee's going to dislocate. Nope. He came up. He looked good. every time he got the ball, I mean, he didn't always get positive yards because the line was bad, but he was moving in traffic, changing direction, stopping and starting. I don't know why they didn't give him the ball more than they did. When they finally gave him the ball the last drive, he's the one who scored the game-winning touchdown at the end with 1 minute left.
1 minute left, yep.
Yeah, he was in that drive, and they moved right down the field. And there were a lot of times they were at the 1 yard line. They're either they got tackled at one or a pass interference. And this is some guys are like, I'll give it to my running back. Not that it matters who the player is, but I'm going to give it to this other guy.
Mm-hmm.
Rodgers is like, I'm going to take it.
Yeah, Rodgers led.
It'd be first and goal, and he's like, no, I'm going to throw the fade. And he threw every pass. And this is like a perfect time to give it your running back a touchdown here. Even if it wasn't Brees Hall, of course I would have loved it. But like he's like a ball hog. He's like, I want the glory. It's mine.
Yeah. Well, he had the most rushing yards. He had 45 rushing yards. Brees Hall was next up with 30 rushing yards. So he was definitely trying to do it. But this was Rodgers Adams game. Targets, 12 targets for Adams, and the next up was Wilson with 6 targets. So I understand that they've got a connection, they've got chemistry. I would have loved to see them lose this game though, playing that style of offense, so they could both go, oh, we can't just do it all ourselves, because this isn't good for the Jets. That means the next game, guess what? They're going to try it again, and guess what? That's not going to work.
The thing was, this wasn't like in we can do whatever we want mode. This was in comeback mode. They were losing because they were playing bad in the first half. These big plays that ended up with big stats, they needed them in desperation style. These were desperate plays that worked out and added up by the end because they did it for the whole quarter and a half.
Yeah.
But if they would have missed any one of these, they would have easily lost this game. They were outplayed for most of the game. Mac Jones was shimmying out there doing his runs.
Mac Jones, exactly.
So yeah.
Oh, boy. Okay. Let me see. Got any notable things in this game? Nope, nothing notable.
How many carries did Brees Hall have, if you can find it quick enough?
Oh, he had 9 carries. 9 carries for 30 yards and the touchdown, and his long was 18.
Right.
So 9 carries. I mean, come on. It was 23 carries for the total team, and Rodgers had 6 of those 23. So
right, I was nervous with the injury, but he looked good out there. But he just didn't get into a rhythm. They give him 1 carry, then he'd sit out for 5. 1 carry. If you would have given him 3 or 4 snaps in a row, they do what they want to do. But I don't think Brees Hall's health was an issue. Maybe going in to be precautionary, but when he's on the field, he made a lot of good moves and he had no ill effects from any of those stop and starts and cuts and goes.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see for next game then. We'll see. All right. Next game up here is the Texans defeated the Dolphins 20-12. Texans improved to 9-5. Later they clinched the AFC South, and the Dolphins dropped to 6-8.
Dolphins lost. This was a tweener game. They weren't favored, I don't think, or at least in terms of the record going in. So, but this is not their hardest game left in their schedule. They might have one easier one, but this is one they definitely have to win because they lost an easier game a couple weeks ago, I believe, or whatever it was. So they had to win this game. This was tough. They didn't get going at all today. I believe Jonnu Smith scored their one touchdown that was almost irrelevant as the Texans. I don't think the Texans even played well. They just kind of scored when they needed to just to keep them at arm's length, and the Dolphins never got into gear really.
Yeah. Tua, I think single-handedly lost this game for them with 3 interceptions and
3 picks,
critical.
that's tough.
Yeah, in critical moments. Obviously, I don't want to put it all on him. There was a failed 2-point conversion attempt. There was a missed kick point after. Some questionable play calling going on. And you're right. The Texans didn't look like they dominated.
Right.
Mixon was limited to 23 yards. So it's just a tough. I think it's a tough loss. It's hard for me. It's hard. I feel like crying, but I'm not going to cry. Dolphins don't make me cry. Yes, they do. Anything else we want to talk about this game? I don't know.
No, this was a heartbreaker. They're not mathematically eliminated, but with Cincinnati on how they're playing much better, they're pretty much. I think they have to win out, and they need certain teams to lose out to even have a chance. I think they're still technically in the hunt, but they're in the they're the last ones left.
Yeah, and not to make excuses, but the Dolphins, they did play without their starting tackles.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things. Maybe get Jonnu Smith involved more often. Waddle did get hurt. Water is wet, as the boys like to say. All right. Next game up, the Browns defeated the Colts what? Oh, I'm sorry. The Broncos. I'm like, what? The Broncos defeated the Colts 31-13, improving to 9-5. Broncos strengthened their wild card position, and the Colts dropped to 6-8 after blowing early 10-0 lead.
This one, Richardson had a nice long run to start the scoring off, or at least the first touchdown. A lot of carries for your man Jonathan Taylor, but with Richardson there, he's not going to get any goal line area carries or scoring type ones unless he breaks a long run, and they're not doing that.
Wait, no. They did do that, and you know what happened? Richardson went to do a little flip of the football before he crossed the goal line. He had a long run.
Taylor or Richardson?
Taylor.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, yeah. I'll see if I can find it before this is over.
Okay. Well, nonetheless, the long run is the only way he's going to get there.
Exactly.
Is the point. It's still the same thing, whether he actually messed up mentally at the end there, but that's the only way he's not going to get those 5-yard carries. Those are Richardson's.
Yeah. He did break the century mark though. He did have 22 carries for 107 yards. So he was okay there.
The Broncos were a little slow going. Nix didn't have a great day. He did have 3 touchdown passes, but he also had 3 interceptions, which kind of kept the game close for a little bit. But by the end, I don't know if there was a defensive touchdown, a fumble recovery for a touchdown for Denver, and that's what kind of put it to that 15, 16-point margin. Then one more offensive touchdown capped it off as the Colts pretty much didn't score at all the second half. Maybe one time early in the second half.
The Colts did not score in the second half. Yeah, that was 13 at the half.
Yeah, it was like 13-10, give or take, and then it ended up being 31-13 or whatever the final score was. You said, yeah.
Yeah, and so a couple of key injuries on this game. Pierce had a concussion. Surtain had an ankle injury. He did return, and then he re-injured it again. McLaughlin had a thigh thing going on. So we'll get into those news and notes later on in the week, though.
Okay.
All right. Bills defeated the Lions. Oh, it's so hard, but it's the regular season, and the Bills will lose in the postseason. Bills defeated the Lions 48-42, ending the Lions' 11-game win streak. Bills improved to 11-3. Lions fall to 12-2. Highest scoring game against the Lions this season, and the Bills scored 30-plus points in the 8th straight game. I don't like them, but I got to give them credit where credit is due, I guess.
Well, not only, but they've beaten the Chiefs, which it's hard to say how quality. They gave them their only loss, and they gave this team, who was on the hottest winning streak, their loss. So they're beating the good teams.
Yeah,
and part of their winning their wins this year for the Bills. That is.
Yeah.
Josh Allen can do whatever he wants. He's a monster. They said they checked out I forget what part of his body, but he had a funky fall. He did get X-rays just more to just double check. He's like, I think I'm good, but I'd hate to go 3 days and have something rattling around there. Let's check it out. And he was good to go. So no issues there, but he did have a weird fall that he just wanted to verify how intact he was. What else there? This game ended up being close by the score, but the Bills really pulled away, and we're always up by 17 points. Then Detroit would score to get it back to 10.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, they're doing this, so they get one more stop, and they never got that stop. Just Buffalo always answered every time, got another score until the end there, where Detroit scored twice, but by that time it was not enough time and too desperate. Both quarterbacks finished with 41 points fantasy-wise, so they both got their fantasy score, but the Bills really dominated this game.
Yeah, so this was a tough one. I think Detroit lost this game in the first quarter. They didn't give up, obviously. They were in comeback mode.
Was it 21-zip before they scored?
It was 14-0 in the first quarter.
Okay.
And then I believe Detroit had scored, so it was like 14-7.
I saw 21-7, and I didn't know what the order was of the scores.
Yeah, no, there was a score there. And then 21 points in the fourth quarter for the Lions. So they were making their rush comeback. They just ran out of time. They ran out of plays. Bills did what they needed to do. This was a rushing kind of dominated game on both sides of the ball, except better on the Bills. That's what they needed to do to slow down this offense, but they didn't really slow them down. That's the thing. They slowed them down enough to win the game. I'm sorry. I don't want to give the Bills so much credit.
So at the end of the game, did you see the onside kick attempt for the Lions?
I did not see it. No.
So they scored. What was the final score?
48-42.
So they scored a touchdown.
The Lions' final TD with 12 seconds left.
Yeah. So there's no time left. They had to score twice, and it was taking a while to get down there. But they did score with 12 seconds left. They went for the onside kick, and it worked in that it went off the guy's face mask and he didn't catch it.
Yeah.
But with the that footballs, they're pretty dark. They're almost black now. The football, the brown,
Mm-hmm.
and the Lions were wearing their all black unions except for the blue helmets this time.
Mm-hmm.
You could not see the ball. I thought they were. I could be convinced that they recovered it, but it took the refs so long to get the pile pulled off. And even as they were pulling them off, you could see the ball going. You could just tell by the way the guys are reacting that the ball was going back and forth 4 times.
Oh Jesus!
And if they're on the replay, you could see the ball not get caught by the Bills up man, but you couldn't tell where the ball went because it was just a pile of black pants and black sleeves and black shirts. So the ball was just like, it literally was just disappeared.
Yeah,
you have no idea where it was. So, I mean, I can't tell for sure who got it, but if they were both wearing lighter colors or, they were in the silver pants or something, there might have been a chance to maybe see who got the ball, their hands on it. Because it definitely changed possession 3 times after the fact. But if you could see when it was recovered, you might be able to give them the ball there.
Yeah. You know what? You remember we had this discussion. Is anything else for this game?
No, it was a shootout, but really the Bills controlled it.
Yeah. Okay. So remember we had a discussion about the penalties and all that stuff, and I said that we should just go full AI and put some chips in the ball and all that stuff. Stuff like this. If you had a chip in the ball and you had a chip on everybody's chest plate or their thing, if you're holding the ball to your chest plate, if you're holding the ball in your glove and it's all chipped up, you would know who's under that pile with it. Like, I get the human element, I get the fun of it, but if they got the recovery and they're down, then they've got the recovery and they're down. If somebody's throwing some shots to the nether regions to get the ball jarred loose and stuff, I don't know.
So this is going to make that game against Minnesota at the end of the year even bigger because now they're going to have to win it as opposed to hoping they lose along the way. Maybe Chicago can help them out later tonight and knock off the Vikings, but the Vikings have a chance to take over the division in the next week and a half or so.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next up here. Eagles defeated the Steelers 27-13. Eagles improved to 12-2. Win franchise record 10th straight. Steelers fall to 10-4, but clinched playoff spot. So first meeting between the teams when both had 10 plus wins. It's exciting.
So this one, Philadelphia dominated time of possession, dominated everything. The Pittsburgh didn't do anything essentially. I'm trying to think. There's a couple other points I want to make here. I saw that Saquon Barkley was banged up, but I didn't get any clarity on it. And I was on this one. I was box score refreshing, and he was in on every drive. He wasn't getting featured. Go ahead.
Knee injury and missed most of the second quarter.
But yeah, he came back and he was in. If they were worried about him, they wouldn't give him the ball at all. So he was coming in. Gainwell did get a lot of carries there, but they were also up by a lot. So it was hard to say what the reason was there. It's kind of like we're salting the game away here. We don't need to get Barkley in there to get hurt again, but he was in on every drive after the point he returned. So I don't know how much that had a factor, but Jalen Hurts is the ball hog, man. I mean, they corrected their passing game. They had a lot of, they started passing the ball early, got Devontae Smith and AJ Brown going right off the bat. Most of their yards, at least most of AJ Brown's yards came in the first half. And then they kind of then it was just Jalen Hurts. The whole second half was like, I'm just going to keep the ball and do my tush pushes. He had 15 carries today. A quarterback had 15 carries.
Yeah.
He just kept the ball to himself the entire second half.
What do you think about Jalen Hurts as far as personality goes? You've seen the post game stuff that he does. What do you think? You have an opinion about him?
No, I mean, he's very, very stoic and very relaxed no matter what's going on around him. I don't know if he's if he's that good, that cool, or just kind of glazed face kind of thing.
You think he's got the team's best interest, his players' best interest at heart?
What I think he and the coach are on the same page. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Okay.
So whatever interest the coach has, he has the same interest, and they're working together because I can't imagine he's calling his own. I think the coach is like, yeah, this works. Do it again, Jalen. Do it again, Jalen. Do it again. He's like, that's what he told me to do. I'll do it.
Yeah.
So I don't think
you're right there. I think
I don't think he's stealing it like where it's like it's mine. I'm not giving it to you. I think the coach is like, this works. We're gonna keep doing it. They can't stop us. What are you gonna do? But it's frustrating to watch sometimes because it's like no one else gets a chance. And I know it's not T-ball or anything, but like he'll get 4 carries. They won't go anywhere, but they'll just keep doing it. And they have to go so short. They got tackled the 1 yard line like 4 times today. And it took them like 7 carries to get in, but they just keep doing it. Cause they're like, eventually we're going to get 2 inches at a time and we're going to get that yard over 4 carries.
Yeah. So I know that the squeaky wheel got his grease. A.J. Brown had his 8 catches for his 110 yards and his touchdown, so that's good. Barkley was limited the 65 yards on 19 carries. So the reason I asked is because Barkley is in a record watch here.
Yeah, that's yeah, right.
So he needs 418 yards in the final 3 games for the NFL rushing record, not the team's record, the NFL rushing record. This is something that I think the team, the coach, I'm pretty sure they're all aware of it. Jalen Hurts is probably aware of it. I'm not going to say anything because Barkley did get banged up in this game, so we wouldn't have known what the game plan would have been for this game. But that leaves 139.3, but 140 yards for the next 3 games. For him to get that record. I would love to see him get that NFL rushing record because that means that he would probably end up being the MVP of the season.
And they were running the ball the whole fourth quarter, and they weren't giving it to Barkley. They gave it to Barkley 1 out of 5 carries, but like you're right, like it's not like we're changing what we're gonna run the ball. Yeah, let's give it. If you're kind of, it doesn't contradict what you're trying to do. You're trying to run the ball to run out the clock.
Exactly.
And you can get the guy yards. Maybe he breaks one. Maybe he gets 6 yards 3 times. That's 18 less yards next time he has to get.
Exactly. For an NFL record like that, and especially a running back record, which running backs obviously they don't have the durability, as what I guess they used to, or whatever the case is. But I don't know. It's interesting. It's a definitely interesting thing. So okay. Anything else for this one?
No, they just I would say the last play. I don't know. You maybe can see when the drive started. I just know it was a good chunk of time, at least 6 minutes. It might have been up to 9 minutes. But the last drive to kill the clock, the Philadelphia Eagles had a 21 play drive to kill the clock. They went all the way down the 2-yard line. They didn't score. They took the knee at the end there. They just kept it was interesting and infuriating to kind of watch. It'd be 1st and 10. They would throw a 9-yard pass. It'd be 2nd and 1, and then they would do 3 tush pushes to get that 1 yard. Then they would have a penalty, a holding penalty. It'd be 1st and 20. They might get 1 yard, a carry for like 1 or 2 yards, and then would throw a 17-yard pass. So it'd be 3rd and 1, and they'd go for a tush push. They'd get stopped, but they'd go for it on 4th down. I don't know how many of those first downs on that drive were on 4th down, but at least 2, if not 3. And if they weren't 4th down, the rest were 3rd down and 1s. They converted on like 7 3rd 1/4th and 1s to have that 21 play drive continue there.
21 plays, 88 yards, 10 minutes and 29 seconds.
Right.
Wow.
Usually I cheered that stuff, but it was just
right
it was like, oh my God, because they would take them 3 plays, get that 1 yard, but they would do it and then reset the 4 downs and do it again.
Yeah,
good on them. It was frustrating as a opponent, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right, last game we have here is going to be the Arizona Cardinals defeated the New England Patriots 30-17. The Cardinals improved to 7-7. The Patriots fall to 3-11. Cardinals snap a 3-game losing streak. Perfect on 3rd downs. 10-15 versus the Patriots 0-6.
So the matchup was good in terms of Arizona offense against a team like New England. You thought it might be a good day for Kyler Murray. Oh wow, what a catch! Sorry, Romeo Doubs just had an awesome catch. You thought it might be a great day for Kyler Murray, but he's very like momentum based. If he has like a bad play early, it seems like his whole day's bad. I think he fumbled the first snap of the game, and I was like, uh-oh. And he didn't do anything. James Conner finished off nice because they were in the lead the whole time because the other team couldn't score. Your man Ryland had like 4 field goals. He kept kicking field goals early. Their only touchdown was a handoff to the receiver who fumbled, and then a big offensive lineman recovered it at the back of the end zone. So their only touchdown was a fumble recovery on the offense. Yeah. Everything else was field goals. Murray didn't do anything. Connor ended up having a nice day on some nice long runs in the second half as they were killing the clock there. And then Murray left the game shortly with either a late hit or a roughing the passer play. I was nervous he was not going to come back, but he just missed the end of that drive and then came back. But once that happened, then it was all McBride was the only guy he was throwing to. Either I don't know if he could move or not. I didn't watch. I was just scoreboard watching. So after that point, then he started, instead of hitting other guys or handing it off, they were peppering it to McBride. But they just had long drives, and they would either score 3 points or punt it. But the New England couldn't do anything. They scored 2 touchdowns late in the game, but at that point, they were just kind of garbage time touchdowns just to make the score look better. I think it was 30-17, but literally it was like 30-3 the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. New England got the 2 fourth quarter touchdowns. And that was garbage time touchdowns. It was all Cardinals, and they still didn't look like they did earlier in the season, but the Patriots are bad. So there's really nothing to expect too much more there. And I lied, there is one more game after this. If you want to move on from this one.
Yeah, let's get going here.
Yep. So last game, Buccaneers defeated the Chargers 40 to 17. Bucks improved to 8-6. They lead the NFC South. Chargers fell to 8-6. They lost 3 of their last 4, and the Bucks outgained the Chargers 506 yards to 206 yards. Wow.
So I don't want to spend a lot of time on this game just because of how much time we have on the show here, but this game was fun. Once again, Tampa Bay scores on their first drive almost every game. They're like, I think they had a stat, whatever it is, they're the most effective first drive scoring team in the league this year. They did it again. They came right down. Jalen McMillan caught a nice touchdown. And then Mike Evans went bananas for the middle part of the game. And then Bucky Irving and Rashad White. Rashad White was actually good all throughout the game. Bucky Irving had his bigger chunks because I think for the longest time, Baker Mayfield had the longest run for the team until middle of the third quarter. And then when they had more and more consistent running plays back to back to back, then they started getting longer chunks for those running backs. This game was close early because Mayfield had 2 interceptions. I think he had 2. It definitely had 1. But once he stopped turning the ball over, then Tampa Bay just pulled away.
Yeah, for sure. And let's just to give Baker Mayfield his credit here, because he is doing great this season. 22 of 27 with 288 yards and 4 touchdowns. But he's got a career high 32 touchdowns this season. It's his first time over 30 touchdowns in his career. So it's good. It's good. A good success story for Baker. No matter what happens.
Not only were his stats good, but like he was ripping line drive pat. Like he was gunning the ball. He looked like a top tier quarterback talent. Not just by the way the game was going, but like just ripping throws through crowds and stuff.
Exactly. And again, doing things to teams that you're supposed to do things to, you know, it's like you see these games like the Chargers. Yeah, they're good offensively, but are they good defensively? No, they're not good. I think Bosa still I don't even know if he played.
He did.
I mean, he's still got to be banged up a little bit because they had his way. Baker looked great. I'm sorry. Okay.
Well, the Chargers, they were winning their games earlier. I guess basketball teams do it too, but this team cannot come back. They can only play with a lead. If they're down by a little bit, they can't come back. They don't have the personnel or the firepower. Once they got down by that 10 points, they were pretty much done, it seemed like, because they have no running game to make you respect a play action. And that's what Herbert's best at, if you will, because he has that strong arm. If he gets you to suck up, he might go throw over the top. But with players like Johnson who don't really get open over the top, and when he does, he drops half of them, and McConkey doing more of the short stuff, they just kind of kept everything in front of them today, and eventually they would get pressure. The defensive line was good for the Bucs, and every once in a while they just get enough pressure, and just on those third downs they wouldn't convert, and they were just the Chargers would stall out.
Yeah. So for the Chargers for the last couple of games of the season here, it's going to be good to see how the new coach here, takes control of this situation and see what happens going forward, because spotlight's on him.
Yeah.
All right. That's the last game, bud.
Very good. All right, guys, we're going to move this along a little bit. We have some early waiver wire thoughts. We'll think about it more over the couple days and see if we have any better options here. Just to go through this quick, I've got about 4 or 5 waiver wire targets and thoughts here. Some of these might be available in your league. Some may not. These are kind of backup running backs that are getting some potential action here. I've got Jerome Ford for the Cleveland Browns. Nick Chubb is going to be out. They're going to be out. And the Cleveland Browns play Cincinnati next week. And we know they like to give up points. They gave Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard both had touchdowns today and yards in one way or the other, one on the ground, one in the air. And Jerome Ford fits that bill. And if he's going to get 80%, 90% of the workload, he's going to have a decent day, if not a great day next week. Kendra Miller, also not a great matchup against the Green Bay Packers next week, but we don't know the severity of the injury for Kamara. And as Bernie suggested, even if it's moderate, maybe they'll just have him sit out, just make sure there's no reason to get him any more injured. You have him locked up for the next year or two. You don't want to have him coming in to the offseason on an injury. I've got Tajay Spears here versus Indianapolis Colts and then Jacksonville for the fantasy championship. Pollard left the game today. I don't know if it's long-term injury here, but even if it's even if he gets back in the field, this is going to be a 50-50 split. I think the rest of the way we saw this is how I thought it was going to go today earlier in the year but it was all Pollard instead. I was wrong in that regard early in the year, but Tajay Spears, he can do it. He's not a bad player if he gets just enough work. I mean, Pollard earned it. I'm not saying anything like that, but if Spears is going to get that 50% or more of the work, he can handle it. For some defenses here, I've got Detroit's playing Chicago next week. Chicago doesn't, Caleb Williams does not throw interceptions. At least he hasn't, but he does get sacked a lot. We have Jacksonville next week against the Las Vegas Raiders. I know they got torched in the second half of this game, but the Jacksonville defense looked pretty good in that first half. They were fighting more than I thought they would in the way their season's going. And I have the Indianapolis Colts up against the Tennessee Titans next week. They're going to play either Levis, who is just a gift to all teams, or even Mason Rudolph. Rudolph throws just as many interceptions. He just doesn't do 3 in a row. Yeah. He'll throw one, and then he'll come back and score. Levis throws one, then fumbles one, then shits his pants. It goes on top of, like, Rudolph makes just as many mistakes, but they're not like multiplier effect mistakes, you know?
Yeah.
So do you have any other waiver wire thoughts here, or thoughts on the guys I mentioned, or thoughts you might have on your own?
No, but if you, no, that's good for now. I'll get into it in a little bit more detail, but what you said is pretty much the starting point for this at this point. After we get some injury news, updates and clarifications, we can definitely get some deep dives.
All right, guys. I want to thank you all so very much for joining us for this week's 2-Point Conversation. Don't forget, you can find our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, YouTube Music, and Amazon Music. If you're not sure if you want to watch or listen, you can find videos and audio feeds on our website at wingmanentertainment.net/podcast. Don't forget, you can also find our videos on YouTube at wingmanfantasyfootball.com/YouTube. I want to thank all those guys. I know our Sunday shows, we get a few more viewers out there, and I thank you all so very much for joining us. And like I mentioned on this morning's show, or the Sunday morning quickie, you can help. This is our first season doing this full time on YouTube here. If you want to help shape the way this content goes and the way you might like it, give us some feedback here, because we want to. We're doing this for us, but we're also doing it for you guys. And if you can give us suggestions before we get too far along where it's hard to make corrections or adjustments, you can have a big say on how this show can be developed moving forward. So with that being said, guys, when you go to that YouTube channel, please, good crack there, please leave a like, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, leave a comment, let us know what we can do to make your experience even better. With that being said, guys, may your glasses be full, your mugs stay frosty.
And may your fantasy gods be too busy ruining somebody else's team to worry about yours.
We'll cross the stream.
Release the Kraken.
Egon, you said crossing the streams was...